Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Madhujana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jai Om Stabad Paramahamsa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Stabad Paramahamsa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavanda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 25th day of May 2020 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 13, Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. And we're studying texts 8 through 12, beginning on page 537. And Amanitvam Madambitvam Ahimsa Chantar Arjavam Acharyopasanam Shaucham Stayyamatma Vaningraha Indriyateshu Vairagyam Anahankara Evacha Jamma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam Asaktirna Vishvangha Puttadara Grahadishu Nityam Cha Samachittatvam Ishtanishtobapatishu Mahichananya Yogena Bhaktadam Hibicharini Viviktadesha Sevitvam Adatir Janasangsadi Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam Etag Jnanamati Proktam Ajnanam Yadato Nyatha. Go ahead. Just do them all. Amanitvamadam bitvam. Ahimsa chantararjavam. Archayopasanam shaucham. Stayamatna viningraha. Indriyatesha vairagyam. Anahankara evacha. Janmam mrityu jara vyadhi. Tokadoshanu darshanam. Asaktirana vishvanga. Puttradara graharishu. Nityam cha samachittatvam. Ishtanishtopapastichu. Mayachananya yogena. Bhaktira vyabhicharini. Viviktadesha sevitvam. Adatir janasangsadi. Adhyatma jnana nityatvam. Tattva jnanartha darshanam. Eta jnanamati proktam. Ajnanam vyatatonyata. So I'm just going to read the translation because it's pretty much just one-on-one translation. Translation. Humility, pridelessness, nonviolence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever they may be, is ignorance. So Prabhupada goes through systematically here in the purport, and we'll read part of it. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This process of knowledge is sometimes misunderstood by less intelligent men as being the interaction of the field of activity. But actually, this is the real process of knowledge. If one accepts this process, then the possibility of approaching the absolute truth exists. This is not the interaction of the 24 elements as described before. This is actually the means to get out of the entanglement of those elements. The embodied soul is entrapped by the body, which is a casing made of the 24 elements, and the process of knowledge as described here is the means to get out of it. Of all the descriptions of the process of knowledge, the most important point is described in the first line of the 11th verse. Mahichananya yogena bhaktirabhyabhicharini. The process of knowledge terminates in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord. So if one does not approach or is not able to approach the transcendental service of the Lord, then the other 19 items are of no particular value. But if one takes to devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, the other 19 items automatically develop within him. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.18.12, Yasyasti bhakti bhagavati kinchana sarvair gunais tatra samasate suraha. All the good qualities of knowledge develop in one who has attained the stage of devotional service. The principle of accepting a spiritual master, as mentioned in the 8th verse, is essential. Even for one who takes to devotional service, it is most important. Transcendental life begins when one accepts a bona fide spiritual master. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, clearly states here that this process of knowledge is the actual path. Anything speculated beyond this is nonsense. As for the knowledge outlined here, the items may be analyzed as follows. Humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. The material conception of life makes us very eager to receive honor from others, but from the point of view of a man in perfect knowledge, who knows that he is not this body, anything, honor or dishonor, pertaining to this body is useless. One should not be hankering after this material deception. People are very anxious to be famous for their religion, and consequently sometimes it is found that without understanding the principles of religion, one enters into some group which is not actually following religious principles, and then wants to advertise himself as a religious mentor. As for actual advancement in spiritual science, One should have a test to see how far he is progressing. He can judge by these items. All right, we'll read one more paragraph. Nonviolence is generally taken to mean not killing or destroying the body. But actually, nonviolence means not to put others into distress. People in general are trapped by ignorance in the material concept of life, and they perpetually suffer material pains. So unless one elevates people to spiritual knowledge, one is practicing violence. One should try his best to distribute real knowledge to the people so that they may become enlightened and leave this material entanglement. That is nonviolence. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So we may recall, at the beginning, Arjuna had a 6-part question. He wanted to know, well, what is Prakriti, what is Purusha, what is material energy, and what is the living entity. He wanted to know what is the Chaitra and the Chaitragya, the body and the knower of the body, or the field and the knower of the field. And he wanted to know what is knowledge and the goal of knowledge. So Krishna has described the Prakriti and the living entity and the field, knower of the field, and now he's describing what is real knowledge in these 20 parts. So this purport systematically goes through and explains what each of them is in the context of Krishna consciousness. First, Prabhupada, in the first paragraph, he describes what the necessity is for this knowledge. And in other words, there's this aspect of sambandha videya prayojana. Sambandha gyan means knowledge of the relationship of Krishna to this world, which includes the analysis into the different elements, earth, water, fire, ether, etc. And it also includes knowledge of the knower, the Chaitragya, which has been covered. Then when you understand who is God, what is this world, what is the relationship, who are we, then comes the need for a process, abhideya. And that process of elevation, which leads to pure love of God and going back to Godhead, extrication from this world, depends on knowledge. Any process that is going to be successful depends on understanding what's what and how to do it. So that's what Krishna is now describing. And it's very interesting. Amanitvam, the first qualification is humility. Because if you think you know it all, or that you can figure it out on your own, then you're helpless. You're going to be controlled by the external material energy. This is the famous ascending process of knowledge. So humility implies, which it includes here, another element of the knowledge, is the acharyopasanam, is worshipping the acharya, the spiritual master. Now Prabhupada also, or Krishna also mentions the dambitvam, and Prabhupada talks about that. What does he say here? Yeah, in the second paragraph, people are very anxious to be famous. So this is the opposite of amanitvam. Amanitvam means not wanting fame. Amanyana, amanadena, and we find the same thing. So one should not be hankering after material deception. Now this deception, honor, people are very anxious to be famous for the religion. This is how Vishnu Chakravarti describes this adamba, which is a quality of the demons, the dambo darpa vimanascha. And that is, Prabhupada talks about pride. He usually defines it as pride. But it's what we would call false pride. In other words, you're taking a position, in this case often a position of respect within religion, which you don't deserve. In other words, you want to be seen as religious because it's good, but you don't actually want to be religious. And we find that in the pastimes of Krishna, you may remember that at the beginning of the 10th canto, where Kamsa is taking the reins of his sister who just married, actually cousin sister, and then there's this omen that this 8th child, not son, 8th child of this lady will kill you. So immediately Kamsa is ready to chop her head off. And Vasudeva has all of these arguments. He has a beautiful description of transmigration of the soul and karma and everything, which doesn't impress Kamsa. And so finally he appeals to his reputation as, that it's not going to look good if you kill your sister at the time of her marriage. This is not good. Plus, she's not a danger to you. It's the son. I'll deliver all the children, So this is when carried to the extreme, this is a demonic quality. Dumbo. And Dumba means bluffing, taking a position you don't deserve and wanting to be famous in that position because that's facilitates your rule or whatever it is. So here, one of the adambitvam, in other words, is no bluffing, no false pride, and real humility, especially before the spiritual master. Harekrishna. Amanatvam adambitvam ahimsa chantarajivim. Now Prabhupada describes this nonviolence. Nonviolence generally means, it's obvious, not hurting any living being. But he gives a proactive definition of it. In other words, if someone gets hit by a car out here, and they're lying in the gutter and they're writhing in pain, and you just walk by, that's a crime. That's a criminal negligence. In other words, not trying to stop the suffering of others is a kind of violence. And that's a proactive, meaning that a real devotee does his best to help humanity, or every living being, to advance in Krishna consciousness as far as possible. That's real nonviolence. And as we know, that was, this idea of just not caring or withdrawing from society for one's own spiritual elevation is condemned by Prahlad Maharaj in his famous verse. Not killing or not destroying the body, that's what it's generally taken. But actually, nonviolence means not to put others into distress. Elsewhere, Prabhupada describes it as not interfering or not interfering with other living entities' destiny. In other words, interrupting their life or their natural course of events so that they move on to the next stage. That's another thing. Is that it's more than just doing bodily harm. It's disrupting one's natural course so that he can move forward in life. There's an expanded definition. And it includes, of course, not harming anyone. The famous example is the hunter that Narada Muni purified. From half killing animals, which is just horrible. He became so gentle that he wouldn't even step on an ant. So that's ahimsa. And then Prabhupada will talk about chanti. And if there's any discussion on these few points, amanitvam, adambitvam, and ahimsa. Next one is chanti and simplicity. So chanti is tolerance. Tolerance means that one should be practiced to bear insult and dishonor from others. Now this is especially this kind of because there's tolerance, different kinds of tolerance. The word tatiksha seems to be used, as far as I can tell in Sanskrit, more for the physical tolerance. Like matra sparsha konteya, heat and cold, pleasure and pain, tam tatiksha. But chantir has to do with interactions, human interactions, which is oftentimes more difficult to tolerate. If someone insults you, you can tolerate cold shower, but if someone insults you, you can't. So that's why Prabhupada mentions here, chanti or tolerance means one should be practiced to bear insult and dishonor from others. If one is engaged in the advancement of spiritual knowledge, there will be so many insults and much dishonor from others. This is expected because material nature is so constituted. Even a boy like Prahlad, who only 5 years old, was engaged in the cultivation of spiritual knowledge, was endangered when his father became antagonistic to his devotion. The father tried to kill him in so many ways, but Prahlad tolerated him. So there may be many impediments to making advancement in spiritual knowledge, but we should be tolerant and continue our progress with determination. So this is what happens is like karuna, mercy and compassion, often require tolerance. Because if you're going to really be compassionate, you have to expose yourself to opposition. because you have to go out, you have to be in a situation where it may be difficult to preach or to present the Krishna consciousness. And so those two have to go together. You have to be able to tolerate both, sometimes physical difficulties as well as dishonor and insult in order to really be compassionate. So therefore those are complementary, really. And we find, what is it, the description of the sadhu, by Kapila Dev, Tatikshava Karunika, Suridak Sarvadehinam. He's tolerant, and he's merciful and compassionate, and the best friend of all living entities. This is the first qualities of the sadhu. Okay, and Prahlad, of course, is a perfect example, and there's so many others, Haridas Thakur and others who had to tolerate so many things. Simplicity. So this is Arjavam. Simplicity means that without diplomacy, one should be so straightforward that he can disclose the real truth even to an enemy. As for acceptance of the spiritual master, that is essential, because without the instruction of a bona fide spiritual master, one cannot progress in the spiritual science. One should approach the spiritual master with all humility and offer him all services so that he will be pleased to bestow his blessings upon the disciple. Because a bona fide spiritual master is a representative of Krishna, if he bestows any blessings upon his disciple, that will make the disciple immediately advanced without the disciples following the regulative principles, or the regulative principles will be easier for one who has served the spiritual master without reservation. So this is an essential aspect, as we know. And one of the things that, accepting a spiritual master, the whole process is so personal. In other words, we're trying to become conscious of the personality of Krishna and our relation to him as persons, separate from what we thought was our identity. And we want to take on a new identity, using this very body, but to discover our spiritual nature and so forth. So that relationship with the spiritual master is an essential plugging in, if you will, to the spiritual nature, and serving and recognizing and kind of it's almost like you're chipping away, at that mountain of false ego that you've been building for so many many births, and that's the excellent way to do it, to recognize one's humble nature, humble relationship in terms of the spiritual master, and he in turn smooths the path to understanding Krishna and gradually establishing one's relationship with Krishna. And of course, in the higher realms, we find that there's a special identity that the spiritual master has in relation to Krishna, and that may involve your relation to Krishna. But it's that relationship. And Prabhupada was once asked, because in the Christian religion, it's like they don't have exactly the idea of a guru and disciple. So everyone is accepting Jesus. So I accept Jesus as my guru, But it's not this direct relationship. In other words, it's not a, something that's tangible oftentimes. So Prabhupada was asked, isn't it possible just to read the books, someone read the books and then become your disciple in that way? And Prabhupada said, no. One has to have a living spiritual master. Why? Because he can pull your ear. You've heard this before? Yeah. And so that reminds me of this verse that Krishna speaks in the 11th canto. And I think it's just before, just after the famous verse, Tasmad Gurum Papadneta Jigyashu Shreya Uttamam. Shabde Birichanisham Brahmanupa Shamashriam. That's in the Yogendras, I'm sorry. But this is definitely Krishna. Oh, it's after the Gita. The Gita. You've heard of Pururava and his entanglement with Urvashi. Now, Urvashi was one of the beautiful girls of the heavenly planets. And this Pururava, I forget all the details how he established a relationship with her, but she broke it. In other words, she had with her some pet lambs, and she had some deal with him that she would never see him naked unless they were going to have sex. And so I think the Ashwini Kumars came and stole the lambs. This was all planned. And it was the middle of the night, and he ran out to try to save the lambs. He was naked, So he left them goodbye. And she went back to the heavenly planets, and he was like lamenting and everything. Said, okay, once a year of the demigods, you can come up and we'll have it. So he went on like that, on and on. He was so infatuated with her. And then finally, he comes to his senses. And he has this Gita, which is really heavy duty, how he was. It's a song of renunciation. It says, for so many years, I was serving the lips of the overseer, and now I was like a worm in stool, and so it's renunciation. And this is part of the Bhagavad Gita. And after that, Krishna speaks this verse, which is Tasmat Utsrijya. Tasmat. How's it start? Yes. The Duk Sangam? Yes, bad association. Yes, Tasmat Duk Samar Utsrijya Satsu Sajjeta Buddhiman Santa Eva Chindanti Mono Vyasanga Muktibe. Thank you, Bhagavan. The whole idea is give up bad association. Tasma duk sangam. The worst to say. Utsrijya, throw it far away and associate with devotees. Satsu sajjeta buddhiman, intelligent person. Because these saints, the best of which is your own spiritual master, santa eva sachindandi manovyasagam uktibi. With their words, powerful words, strong words, they can cut off the deep-seated attachments in one's mind. This is what we need. And that's why you find, in the past times of Srila Prabhupada during his 12 years of, preaching around the world, some devotees who he knew could take it, he would really chastise them strongly. Satsuru Maharaj is one of those, and he so in his writings he explained that it was real mercy. He felt he really got the mercy to be chastised in that way. So that's an essential part of just like Krishna, when he begins is speaking to Arjuna in the role of a guru, immediately is strong words. You're lamenting for what is not worthy of grief. You're a fool, in other words. Until then he was encouraging him, get up and fight. It was like Kshatriya talk. But as soon as Arjuna surrendered, and now I'm your shishya, shishyasteham sharimam tvam papannam. Please instruct me, I surrender to you. Boom, he came on with these strong words, and of course it was very beneficial. So that's part of the essential nature of a need for approaching a spiritual master. And of course, as we sing every day, yasya prasada bhagavad prasada yasya prasada nagati katobi. I'm always waiting for that yasya prasada. Sometimes I hear it, sometimes I don't. Cleanliness. Okay, that's the next one. Shaucham. Acharyapasanam, shaucham. Okay, cleanliness is essential for making advancement in spiritual life. There are two kinds of cleanliness, external and internal. External cleanliness means taking a bath. But for internal cleanliness, one has to think of Krishna always and chant harekrishna, harekrishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This process cleans the accumulated dust of past karma from the mind. So many statements in the Shastra talk about this purification. I'm thinking of the holy name, this famous verse, Namachintamani Krishnas, Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, Purnak Shuddho, Nitya Mukto Abhinadvan Nama Namino. That the holy name of Krishna is Namachintamani, it's like a Chintamani gem. You contact the holy name with your consciousness, and you're contacting Krishna. And it transforms, just like the Chintamani gem, the philosopher's stone, will transform anything it touches, the gold. Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, the very form of the spiritual relationship with Krishna, is awakened by chanting and hearing the holy name, purely. Purnak Shuddho Nityamo, it is complete. The process is complete. We shouldn't think that this process of chanting is leaving anything out. The whole process of spiritual advancement is there if we surrender to it and chant it defenselessly. Shuddho is purifying. It's purifying. It's pure and it's purifying. Prabhupada gives the example of the sun. I think that's there in the Ishopanishad too, isn't it? Apapavidham. is that he destroys sinful reactions, the Supreme Lord, and he's never tainted at all by sin. So, what is that? Krishna Surya Sama Maya Hoyandakar. That Krishna is like the sun, Maya is like darkness, their ignorance. Wherever the sun shines, Maya cannot have any influence. So that pure cleanliness is that internal cleanliness. And what is that? We find Shinvatam Sakata Krishna. Punya Shavana Kirtan. Ridyantaksto Yabhadrani Vidunoti. So that Vidunoti means completely cleanses the adabras, the abhadras, the inauspicious things in the heart. Krishna is there when we're chanting and hearing, especially hearing with ardent hearing, submissive all reception, then that cleaning process is affected by Krishna. And that other one, I don't know if I get into this one class, Pabanti he bhagavata atmanaksatam. Does that ring a bell? This is another, it's one of many in the Bhagavatam. The end of this, I believe the second chapter, second canto, there's a verse describing this cleansing. Pabantiye, he puts it drinking through the ears. Pabantiye bhagavata atmanaksatam katam matam shavanaputesha sampitam punanti te vishahivadushitashayam vajanti tachadana sodorohantikam. Sweet. Pabantiye, those who drink the nectar of Krishna Kata, katamratam, through their ear holes, literally. Bhagavata Atma, the descriptions, Kata of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is very dear to the devotees. And Bhagavata Atma Naksatam, Katamritam, Shavanaputeshu, drink it through the ear holes. Sambritam, and who are fully satisfied with it, fulfilled. Then for them, Punanti te, these sound vibrations purify what? Vishya Vadushatashiyam. Very graphic word. Vishya is the object of the senses, sense gratification. Vidushatashiyam, the polluted aim of life known as desire for sense gratification. Asha, asha means aspiration. So that's purified. And what happens? Vajanti tachadana sodorohani. They go to the spiritual world and they reside in a place nearby Krishna's lotus feet. It's all a question of purification. So that external cleanliness helps because it keeps you in the mode of goodness. That's standard. If you're getting internally clean, you'll want to be in a clean environment, But at the same time, if you accept the duties of keeping it clean, that'll help you be, fixed in the mode of goodness. So, do I have to repeat it? Cleanliness is next to godliness. So it's very illuminating. Then there's styrium. So styrium is steadiness. Means that one should be very determined to make progress in spiritual life. Without such determination, one cannot make tangible progress. So that we find that in the nectar of instruction, utsaha nishchaya dharyat. The enthusiasm has to be there, the determination, and the patience over time. Really, patience is a corollary for determination. Where is there any determination if you're not patient? I'm determined for 5 minutes. That's no determination at all. So obviously these have to... Now why? Because we're going against our, conditioned nature. So there's obviously going to be some pushback from there. And we have to be determined to break through the barriers and reach new levels of advancement. Self-control means that one should not accept anything which is detrimental to the path of spiritual progress. One should become accustomed to this and reject anything which is against the path of spiritual progress. This is real renunciation. The senses are so strong that they are always anxious to have sense gratification. One should not cater to these demands which are not necessary. The senses should only be gratified to keep the body fit so that one can discharge his duty in advancing in spiritual life. The most important and uncontrollable sense is the tongue. If one can control the tongue, then there's every possibility of controlling the other senses. Is that Sayam Atma Vinigraha? I think that's Atma Vinigraha. Yeah, self-control. The function of the tongue is to taste and to vibrate. Therefore, by systematic regulation, the tongue should always be engaged in tasting the remnants of foodstuff offered to Krishna and in chanting Hare Krishna. Yeah, I think we're getting off into Indriyartesha Vairagam also. As far as the eyes are concerned, they should not be allowed to see anything but the beautiful form of Krishna. That will control the eyes. Similarly, the ears should be engaged in hearing about Krishna, and the nose in smelling the flowers offered to Krishna. This is the process of devotional service, and it is understood here that Bhagavad Gita is simply expounding the science of devotional service. Devotional service is the main and sole objective. Unintelligent commentators on the Bhagavad Gita try to divert the mind of the reader to other subjects, but there is no other subject in the Bhagavad Gita than devotional service. Prabhupada is getting into a little mood here of Ambarish, the classic thing where, whatever you got, engage in the connection to Krishna. So, Atmanigraha. And then Anahankara. How does that play out? False ego means accepting this body as oneself. When one understands that he is not his body and his spirit soul, he comes to his real ego. Ego is there. False ego is condemned, but not real ego. In the Vedic literature, the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 1.4.10, it is said, Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. I am spirit. This I am, the sense of self, also exists in the liberated stage of self-realization. This sense of I am is ego, but when the sense of I am is applied to this false body, it is false ego. When the sense of self is applied to reality, that is real ego. There are some philosophers who say we should give up our ego, but we cannot give up our ego because ego means identity. We ought, of course, to give up the false identification with the body. So kind of moving from the false ego to the real ego is the whole process of devotional service. Again, it's difficult because we're so accustomed to identifying with whatever body we happen to be in. Even in this one lifetime, you have so many different bodies. You take on so many different identities. Krishna explains at the beginning. And you identify with each one as you go on, in life. You're a 6-year-old, and well, that's who I am. I'm 6-year-old, and there's my brother, he's 10. He'll always be 10, I'll always be 6. And then after a while, it changes. You're 10, and he's 14. There's a whole other identity. So it goes on like that. But, if we're fortunate enough to read Bhagavad Gita, come in touch with this knowledge, we want to find out what is our permanent identity. We realize, we have that enlightenment that I'm the knower of all of this body. I'm not the body. The very simple thing which can easily be explained. But then the question is, well, okay, what do I do as a spirit soul? It's not enough just to know I'm spirit. One has to say, what is the function of spirit as opposed to what I've been doing now? And that's the whole process of engaging in devotional service with the very senses which you misidentified with before. Now your body just becomes a tool for you to develop your consciousness of who you really are. And as long as it's still functional, you use it to serve Krishna. And the whole thing, purification goes on until one is no longer fall into that habit of misidentifying yourself with the body. But rather you're always identified with your real Swarup, which you know the verse, Jivera Swarupoi. Yeah, but the second line is the hard part. All right, we can learn it right now. You too, whoever's out there. So, the second line, and it's all part of the Swarup, Jivera Tatasta Shakti. Jivera Tatasta Shakti. You know what Tatasta Shakti? Yeah. Tatasta is two words combined. Tata and sta. Tata is the border or the margin, and sta means situation, your position. So that's us. This is the jiva, is Tasta Shakti, and Beda Prakash, a manifestation simultaneously different from and one with the Lord. Beda is the difference, Abeda is that. So those three things, that's our real Swarup, and our real ego, our real identity. And understanding that, so the first thing comes, you understand it. Then comes the struggle to live in that identity. And that's all the different things we have to do in that as devotees. Okay. Aham Brahmasmi, I remember that was the first Sanskrit phrase I learned. It goes along with, you're not that body, Prabhu. When you first joined the temple. Oh, what am I? Aham Brahmasmi, I'm spirit, Yeah, you can ask.
So Bhaktin Ace asks, Hare Krishna, how do you help a living entity that doesn't want to be helped? This was about 20 minutes ago, so I'm not sure exactly what you were talking about. It was like 20 minutes ago.
But it's from this class, yeah. Usually, people respond to prasadam. In other words, they may not respond to the philosophy. They may have a resistance. So you try to simply establish some kind of basic relationship, and they see you as a friend. They see you as someone who's a nice person, at least that. And that can be the first step, And then if they like the prasadam, you see them several times, you invite them, we have a free feast every Sunday, or Thursday night when we know it's free. And why don't you come by and check it out? There's more of this vegetarian, food, spiritual food with love, made with love. And in this way, people don't know that they're being helped, that they're getting the greatest benediction of coming in contact with Krishna in this way, So one has to be sensitive to where the person is at. Some people are interested in spiritual matters, which is rare. Manushyanam sadhujashchit siddhe. But those people can be given, a book, or even learn some of the philosophy, invited to engage in the devotees, get online, whatever, And the curiosity, which that is so valuable, can be directed in the right way. So, but it's difficult. This is the material disease. People don't know they need help, or they certainly don't know that they need spiritual help, I have my own religion, I don't believe in any organized religion. I'm a very spiritual person, whatever it may be. So the compassionate preacher finds some way to make contact, with the person who has to be a little bit receptive, and start a relationship where they see you as a friend or someone who's interesting, and in that way you're helping them, and they may accept it in a more serious way as time goes on. That's the idea. Some people are just out and out inimical. You can't really help them, and that's why the Majjhima Adhikari. We have these 4 different categories of beings that we relate to differently. It's very important how to relate to everyone on their level. Ishvaretad adineshu baliseshu dvishatsusha prema maitri kripa upeksha yas karoti samajjima. This is in 11th canto. So the 4 categories of the Ishvara, the Lord, those in direct relationship with Him, the devotees, the innocent, those who are not, committed one way or another, but they're confused, but they may be open to, Krishna consciousness, and the out-and-out inimical persons who are dead set against God. They may be declared atheists. So with the Lord, you try to develop your love for Krishna. Prema, Maitri, with the devotees, friendship. With the innocent, Kripa. You try to show them compassion and mercy by somehow or other giving them some kind of Krishna consciousness, even if it's just a Hare Krishna, so that they hear it and maybe respond. I have the best, my most greatest response as I take my walk with the homeless guys. Several of them will give me a nice Hare Krishna. And
I just realized you probably brought it up because you were talking about hymns. That doesn't mean just not harming, but it means trying to help.
Oh yeah, okay, that's where it's coming from. Yeah. So yeah, that's the sincere follower of Lord Chaitanya is always racking his or her brain. How can I somehow reach out, to the people and give them the great treasure that I've been given? And you get so much mercy from Lord Chaitanya from that. Okay, I'm trying to preserve this thing. Is it still alive? Barely. All right, where were we? Ham Brahmasmi. Okay, one should try to understand the distress of accepting. So this is Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshnana Darshanam. Somehow this element of knowledge, I seem to refer to that more than any of the other. So, famous, one should try to understand the distress of accepting birth, death, old age, and disease. There are descriptions in various Vedic literatures of birth. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the world of the unborn, the child's stay in the womb of the mother, its suffering, etc., are all very graphically described, especially in the third canto, Kapila Dev. It should be thoroughly understood that birth is distressful. Because we forget how much distress we have suffered within the womb of the mother, we do not make any solution to the repetition of birth and death. Similarly, at the time of death are all kinds of sufferings, and they are also mentioned in the authoritative scriptures. These should be discussed. And as far as disease and old age are concerned, everyone gets practical experience. No one wants to be diseased, and no one wants to become old, but there's no avoiding these. Unless we have a pessimistic view of this material life, considering the distresses of birth, death, old age, and disease, there's no impetus for our making advancement in spiritual life. And this is one of the things I bring up periodically, is how, well, what's going to be our motive for advancing, for taking on the admitted austerities of devotional life, of bhakti yoga. So the first one actually, is this desire to get free of these things. Is that before we understand anything of the bliss of devotional service and what's going on in the spiritual world and Krishna, we can immediately understand. And that's why these four are there in every yogic process, which at least has this idea, well, how can we break free of the round of birth and death, which everyone experiences. And so this serves as a solid, should serve as a solid motivating force to make us want to be stricter in our sadhana, accepting things that we may not want to accept and so forth. Understanding, yes, this will lead me out of this world. Now, we also understand as devotees that this isn't the essence of what bhakti yoga is all about. Is that we're trying to reestablish our loving relation with Krishna and gradually experience more and more of the ecstasy of devotional life to the degree that we don't even care. And that's why Lord Chaitanya prays, Nadanam Najanam Nasundari, and Mama Janmani Janmani. Birth after birth, I simply want your uninterrupted and unmotivated devotional service. So, but we have to, that doesn't come right away. That realization that I don't care about birth and death. We care a lot about it because this is in our face all the time, like it is right now. Disease. I mean, the real the hardest one of these four is disease. Getting old isn't so bad as long as you're not sick. And being young isn't so good if you're sick all the time. So it's the disease that we can directly experience years on end. The birth we forget about, and it's fairly short. And the death is a few minutes, the actual experience. But it's the lead up. It's the body giving you. I read recently that like a huge percentage of people in America are suffering chronic pain all the time. And this is one of the reasons, the opioid crisis is there, So that's disease. That's the disease of the body because their lifestyle is so unhealthy and everything. So janma mitra jada vyada dukkha dosha anudarshana. Anudarshana means to, don't let these get behind you too much. In other words, always anudarshana means to see. How does this follow in the word by words? Darshana, of course, means to see. Dukkha dosha, anudarshanam, observing. One should observe. Not only one's own self, but all around. So that one can, sell Krishna consciousness, the process of yoga, on the basis of, you see all these miseries. We have the solution, the ultimate solution to this. Not a palliative, some new drug or pharmaceutical that's going to help, this or that. But rather the solution to the whole problem. Prabhupada would often make that point. I went to MIT, and who can tell me, the department is teaching the difference between the living and the dead body? No one raised their hand. They don't know anything about the soul, So this is a very practical, attractive feature of Krishna consciousness, Bhakti Yoga, is that it has a cure for the whole disease of birth and death. Bhavaushadhi. Bhava is said to be a disease. At the beginning of the 10th canto, Pariksit is encouraging Shukadev now to speak about these wonderful pastimes of Krishna. And he has this famous verse, Navritta Tarshaya Rupagi Yamanad, Bhavaushadhat Shrotam Mano Viramat, Kauttama Shroka Gunana Varat Puman Varajeta, Vina Pashugnat. It says, when the descriptions of Krishna's Leela and activities, name, form, qualities are emanating from the lips of a pure devotee. Nivritta tarsha means one who has no thirst for the material world anymore. Upagiyamana, he's singing them. Now those vibrations act as a bhavaushadhi, literally a herbal remedy for the disease of birth and death. And it's not a bitter medicine. Shrota mano abhiramat, very delightful for the mind and the ears, So then, having established that in 2 lines, then he says, who, uttama shloka gunanavada, would reject or fail to listen to these descriptions of the qualities of uttama shloka. And that uttama shloka name means that it's, you're going to hear the best, one of the most wonderful, delightful vibrations just on a material level. What to speak of, with the content. Puman varajeta vina pashugnat, except for those who are animal eaters, which hardens the heart. Or the other meaning is pushugna, one who is killing his own self, who is neglecting his spiritual reality and identity. So, that's the real cure for the disease of birth, old age, disease, and death. And when we keep that in mind, we can actually feel ourselves. The real, corollary problem to birth, old age, and disease, and death is your anxiety about it. In this crazy system we have here, just the prospect of getting sick can make you sick. Because it's devastating for your finances. You can't play, your job and everything, because of the health, so-called insurance thing. It's crazy, In so many other countries, it's still not transcendental, but they have universal health care. It's a human right, So here in different parts of the world, these 4 are exaggerated and they're right in your face. So we also should remember them. It's very sobering, but it's part of Krishna consciousness. Is there anything further? Okay. I'm losing track of time. 8:10. Oh my God. So, anything from you? All right. So let's just give 1 or 2 sweet shlokas. All right. So let's see. What is that one that I went through my poetry today, but I'm forgetting one. I know it partially, but I know I've memorized. So there's Pidam. Well, Radheti Nama. Radheti Nama Navasundara Sina Mugdam. Krishneti Nama Madhurabhatagara Dugdam. Savakshanam surabhiraga himena ramyam kritvata daibabhimane vasane chadarte. I actually did a little editing on this one. An excellent fresh nectar drink with endless subtle tastes. Such is the name of Radha, by whom all 3 worlds are graced. Condensed milk that is wonderfully delicious, thick and sweet. Such is the name of Krishna, in whom all attractions meet. Now mix these drinks, O thirsty tongue, and add the fragrant cooling spice of love, a prize the wise will try to buy at any price. And then at every moment drink this beverage most fine, and make my heart supremely blissful, peaceful, and divine. This is Bhagavad Dasa Goswami's realization of the Hare Krishna mantra. So now, with that in mind, let us chant Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.